So hi listeners and viewers now. I keep forgetting that I am video and audio now. I am so excited about our guest today. We have Brandon and Brittany Browne with us. They are a lovely couple, raising a beautiful family. And so excited that they took time out of their busy schedules to come on. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I know it was not easy to get here because I know like a little bit about your lives, so I really appreciate it. So why don't you tell our listeners about yourselves and what you do, and yeah, just as much as you feel comfortable with.
All right. Okay. You want to start?
No, you go. I tapped you.
Ah,
I
We have
saw
little
her. I
signals
saw
going
her.
on over here.
She like gave you the tap of
the
like
tap.
start.
Yeah, get it started. So we are a family kind of we share a lot of life with each other as a couple. So we've got a practice that we have various components that we help each other with. And that practice currently focuses on medical care and counseling care. With an additional service of ketamine assisted psychotherapy coming up. So there's different aspects of that we, help each other with because we've got similar passions.
Mhm.
And, currently, I'll let you talk about what you're doing, but my main part of the day is there, right? If I'm not being a dad at home or a husband, I'm usually there with clients or collaborating with the medical team. And it's where we've learned a lot about ourselves as well. We mentioned in the past, ADHD and autism, things like that. That's a lot of what we see at the practice. So, it's been an area of passion for us to study together and implement some things
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. And our practices are we're coming up on 10 years.
Wow.
We've, since we formed the business next year in 2025 will be 10 years. So we originally started the practice just because we wanted to work together. I'm also a licensed massage therapist, so we wanted to combine our practices so that we could be in the same office and share more life together. And it's just evolved into with the medical part. But currently, because we have 4 children and they're all neurodivergent, they were not fitting into really any school system, whether it was a 5-day program or a hybrid program. There just weren't enough, there wasn't enough understanding of what neurodivergence can look like, especially since all of our kids are high IQ on top of that.
Mhm.
And so that adds a challenge to getting this right support from teachers and the school itself. And so we have decided to micro school them. And I say micro school over homeschool. It is homeschooling by the state of Georgia's definition, but it's not just my kids that are here. We also have another sibling group that's with them. And then I'm in charge of all the lesson planning and the teaching and whatnot. And their mom helps out as well, but it's kind of me spearheading the trajectory of the curriculum and the individual kind of learning plans for each kid. And so we do want to expand that a little bit to involve other kids as well.
Wow. Yeah, you guys are busy. Yeah.
Yes.
But what an amazing, I love how you guys sort of knew that you wanted to work together, and then so you came together, you started your practice, and that evolved and grew, and then you have 4 kids, and you kind of, and I love how you said, Brandon, that you learn a lot about yourselves through the people that you help in your practice. And sounds like you're able to implement some of that into your family structure. And then you, Brittany, being able to recognize that your kids were not thriving in traditional school, and being brave enough to sort of bring them to your micro school, and affording another family the opportunity to bring their children or child or
Mhm.
children that may not have been thriving
Mhm.
into a more an environment that's more conducive to their learning styles. And all of that is like so like right along with me, and like and what I advocate for and believe in. And I think that it's amazing, and for people to be able to see people that were
Mhm.
able to enact that in their lives, I think it will give them hope that they can do something similar, or even if it's not similar, to be able to understand that they can cultivate the life that their family needs, whatever that looks like. So um
Mhm.
uh, bravo, guys.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. So Brandon, tell us a little bit about like what you do and your practice. And you said it serve a lot of people on the autism spectrum as well as with ADHD. How did that come about? Was that like you wanted to do that, or it kind of evolved into that?
Mm.
I think it just evolved
Yeah.
there on its own.
Mhm.
I'd probably have to say, because a lot of the people that I see, there's a good bit of word of mouth and things like that. And I think what happens is people will tell their friends or family members that have some similarities. And then so
Mhm.
that's why I think there's been, quite a bit of that at the practices there, like they're spreading the word of like, hey, like the things that you want to work on is the things that I work on here. And then they give them that phone number and they're like, oh, I want to come and work on the same things. And then it turns out, there might have been a similar underlying diagnosis or, cluster of different symptoms and
Mhm.
experiences and things like that. So it's really happened 100% organically. I haven't put any things out there as like, hey, this is my
Mhm.
jam at all. It just is. I noticed. As a matter of fact, I just noticed it one day when I was preparing for my day. I'm like, okay, ADHD, OCD. As far as the actual,
Mhm.
symptoms that we're treating.
Mhm.
Then I noticed there's a good percentage of it that's actually ADHD throughout the day. So I was like, how about that? And
Mhm.
then and then with that, you see, like there's a lot of connection with autism, right? Like family members, friends, and then so it's just starting to kind of trickle on its own. That's what I think just happened.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow, that's amazing, because your family is neurodiverse too, and so and you kind of cultivated this practice that is neurodiverse. And as someone who kind of that happened to me too, it's like we kind of it's I don't know if it's like what you're comfortable with, or people just understand that you understand, and so they gravitate to that. Because I
Yeah.
think that's a whole other thing, is that when you're always misunderstood by everyone,
Hmm.
when you finally get to somebody that makes you feel heard and seen and like gets you, like, yeah, you want to keep going to that person, but you also are going to tell other people like this person like hears, sees, gets me. And certainly with the genetic and hereditary component to ADHD, ASD, all of those things, family members are going to want to experience that, and then maybe your friends of those people. And so yeah, that's awesome. And so what is sort of and we'll get to you, Brittany, because
It's okay.
no, you and I, like, we'll probably be like drawing about homeschool like for like the next 2 hours if we could. But Brandon, so what's your sort of approach to the way that you approach your therapeutic sessions, and what you do that does draw people in, do you think?
So draw people in what sense?
Like, so it sounds like your practice is successful, and then word of mouth from your current clients is bringing more in, more clients in, and it's kind of growing, and you're not even having to advertise or anything. What do you think is the reason for that? What do you think you offer and bring to the table for this population that
Okay.
is
Yeah.
causing that?
I mean, I think it goes down to what you said before, and I at the office, I'd use the word rapport. So anytime I have
Mhm.
a counselor working, working with us and, like we're hiring them to see clients, one of the things we really talk about is really building rapport, building connection, right?
Mhm.
Because if you feel connected with the person that you're seeing, that's where the first step of change takes place, is like, this person sees me, they get it, and it's okay for me to be me. Like, oh, I don't have to hide that. I don't have to pretend this other way. I can just be myself and it's cool here. Oh, this is great, right? So, rapport, and it's kind of, like all that stuff would be, in a lot of our teachings, right? Because one of the key variables for a counselor is unconditional positive regard, right?
Mhm.
So if you know somebody is going to keep your privacy and think well of you no matter what you say, all of a sudden you're comfortable, you get drawn in, and you want to tell people about that, because we all want the same thing, right? We all want to be validated. We all want to be empathized with, right? And that's something that I teach people how to give and receive all the time, but they're inherently getting that every day when they come in, is that empathy and that validation piece of just, hey, I see you and I think you're awesome. I think you're a great person, right? Let's get down to some work. And I think it's a comforting feeling to have, because it doesn't always occur out there in the real world, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we're
Doesn't always occur
crafting
in
it.
the therapy world either.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
And I think that
Absolutely.
that's a good point, is that you are a therapist that truly lives and can embody that, and they can feel it, and it's
Absolutely.
different. And that's not the case with every therapist.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
We just sometimes have a good time in there. You might, if you were a fly on the wall, you'd hear tears for sure, but you're going to hear a lot of laughter. We will cut up in there at times as well, and just make it a little bit fun.
Yeah. And even the tears are like, it's hard for people to like go to someone that is a stranger and
Yeah.
feel vulnerable enough that they can shed those tears. So
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I was getting at. I don't think like you know you're just
Uh-oh.
like typical therapist, like, report, and you have that desire and passion to make people feel heard, valued. Um, yeah.
Yeah. You glitched for a second, but I think I caught most of that. And, um, you know, you talked about, speaking to a stranger. This weekend, Brittany and I were watching documentary. When I woke up, she was watching a Brene Brown documentary,
Mhm,
researcher famous for, talking about shame and vulnerability.
mhm,
And I thought that was so perfect, because I was like, man, that is most of what I do in the office, is work with that, like people wanting to be vulnerable with another human in order to have a better connection with them. I mean, if you say, like, what is most of your day? Like,
mhm,
mood is in there, biology is in there, family, heredity, all that stuff is in there. But there's a core underlying thing of like, I will feel shame if I share myself, and that is lonely, right? I have seen that from every direction and walk of life. And then so
mhm,
teaching people how to, have self-love, and then being able to figure out who can you be vulnerable with, and then doing that.
mhm,
So,
and that's probably how the practice evolved to such a high population of neurodivergent clients, is that this is a population where it more than often we are being told over and over, you're too much, or you're not the
yep,
right fit. Like,
mhm,
don't show anybody that. That's too weird,
yep,
And
you're
so when
doing
you're
it
told
wrong.
that, yeah, when you're told that over and over, and I think that that's a big reason it kind of has evolved for you in your client population. So
yeah, definitely. Those messaging has been brutal.
Mhm.
We get brutal messages out there from the
Mhm.
time we're young. It's
I
just
was
like,
gonna say, and it starts in childhood. You get
yes,
told you're an outlier, you're doing it wrong, you are strange, odd, weird, you need to be like everyone else, put your mask on, and that's the only way we're gonna receive you. And so that is such a gift to be able to give someone, is that you could take that off. You don't need to put
mhm,
Yeah.
that in here. Like,
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
our take that off, like,
Yes,
we're good.
yeah,
So, yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. I
yeah,
think that's been one of the biggest healing parts for me, is being able to remove the mask and be, okay,
Mm,
I'm fine doing this. So that, but I had to do it in order to find my people. So
yeah,
I honestly, as an adult woman, I've had friends all my life, But this is the first year where I feel like I actually have other outside of my family friends and family friends that are like understanding me, and just accepting of how I
Mhm,
am. And it's
mhm,
been a long time since college, high school, like yeah, there's some masking there, but I did have some real and deep friendships then. But as an
mhm.
adult, it gets harder to make friends, and you get
Definitely.
into parenthood, and those same friendships, you kind of go different ways, and you're still friends, but like life is just taking you different ways. So then there's this loneliness that happens, I think, especially for neurodivergent women that are late diagnosed, of like, I don't know how to find someone to be my friend at this age.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
it's even harder now because I have to mask because I got to be the professional woman. I've got to be the perfect mom. I've got to, all these things, all these
mhm,
expectations of what it means to be a woman.
mhm.
Men too, but I'm not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Not going to speak for
So
you.
let's Brittany, let's delve into that. Like that's a perfect segue. But I want to point out something that you said that I think that our listeners need to hear. You said you need to take the mask off to find your people.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
we think that the mask helps us to find people, but if you're masking, the people that are drawn to you don't really know who you are really.
Yeah.
When
Hmm.
you take the mask off, you can find your people.
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful way that you just said that. And so I want you to talk some about your journey, your diagnosis, when it happened, how it was before that. And I love like the big smile you got on your face when you said in the last year,
Hmm.
like as you have taken that mask off, you have like found your people and found yourself. So at least I think that's what I heard. So go ahead and I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about the process.
Well, I would say since childhood, I've always known and felt different from others. And I have found, I found my best friends through all of that. And I was well liked, but I was in a lot of different social circles. So it really just meant that I knew how to communicate and act in those social circles, but I didn't necessarily feel known by them.
Mhm,
So liked and accepted, but accepted for what I projected at that time because
yeah.
I knew what to project. But that didn't necessarily mean that they knew me, and that's always been an issue, a kind of a running theme. Um, I was incredibly gifted with academics, so I ended up skipping a grade. I always got along with people that were 2 and 3, sometimes 4 years older than me. Um, Very gifted in math. That's the
Mhm.
autism, I guess. I see all these memes about what kind of autism are you? Are you the animal kind or the math kind? I was like, I guess I'm the math kind.
I've never heard that. I need to like look. I've never seen those, but that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So, so I've always been gifted in that and just plowed through. I was always very attracted to, and as far as friendships go, people from other countries, and they would just easily magnetize towards me as well.
Mhm.
Now being on this side of the diagnosis, I'm like, oh, it's probably because befriending someone from another culture, anything I do doesn't really look weird to them. Like they just assume, oh, that's just an American, like, and I don't know much about Americans. So there's this element of I can take my mask off with a foreigner because they have no idea what
Wow.
an American's supposed to act like. What does a neurotypical American look like? They also sometimes will speak slower. So I think that that gives me some auditory processing time, because that's another symptom of my autism is it is really hard for me to process auditory information. If we could have subtitles right now, that would be really beneficial
Oh,
on this
fun.
meeting.
That would be
But
so good. Okay, keep talking. I'm gonna figure out
oh,
how
you
to
don't
She's
do
have
like,
to do it.
she's like, I could do this for you.
I think so.
Yeah, I need
Okay.
my smart glasses to have subtitles under it
Oh,
for
that'd be so nice.
me.
But yeah, I love the subtitles on all my TV shows and movies, and he had to get used to that.
I hate it because it's like the punchline, I done read the punchline by the time the joke is told.
Okay,
I'm like,
Brandon,
oh, like hurry up and say your lines. It's been 3 minutes since I read that.
listen, that is a constant struggle with my husband and I because he's on the spectrum and he likes those subtitles. It drives me insane. But
I
his
finally won though,
processing-
because both of our daughters also like subtitles. So no, he can't win.
And it's just so loud in the house. I'm like, I don't need to hear it. No way. I'm just used to it. It might as well be a foreign film in my house. Everything is just like I can
I don't
see
know what
what
they're
they're
saying.
saying. I can't hear it, but I can see what they're saying.
Yeah. So, as we started our practice, the masking was definitely there. There was this idea of what a professional woman should be. Even as a licensed massage therapist, because I have a double bachelor's and a master's degree, and then I've got a trade license, and there's a lot of assumptions about massage therapists, and I never wanted to be seen as kind of this low level therapist. It was,
Mhm.
so especially considering how academic, I've been very intelligent, and I don't want to be treated like I'm not. So that was kind of a battle for me. So I put on just this really professional face, I would say, and demeanor. And I would say kind of got burnt out from a lot of that. And there was on the other end of being the owner of the practice as well, next to Brandon, and we're hiring employees and we're growing really rapidly. There was some of that that went there too. And I wanted to appease what everybody else wanted. And so there's a lot of pulling on me, and finally had to come to the team and say, I made a mistake, y'all. I got pulled in so many directions and pulled by all of your needs that now our family's in danger and,
Sure.
financially. And we're the owners here, but we're stretching ourselves so much to meet y'all's needs that we have neglected ourselves. And I've made that mistake and I can't do it. So like that was one of the first times for me of kind of removing that mask and saying, hey, I've made some pretty big mistakes here, and I don't know exactly what to do to get out of this, but it's a result of feeling like I had to do X, Y, and Z and do it perfectly over and over, and then not let anybody know that I'm struggling, Yeah, so all the signs were there. Having our kids and noticing how the different ways they were struggling in school was kind of another flag for me of like, hey, if your daughter is struggling with this and y'all's psychological report is almost the same, like she sounds like you as a kid, there's probably something going on for you too, and you need to like start looking at that. I mean, Brandon has asked me what almost the majority of our marriage. We've been married for 13 years.
Yeah.
I forget, I don't know what year it was, but he's been asking me, are you sure you're not autistic? For like so
Brandon,
long.
it's hilarious. He's like, dude, I like again though, that's what happened. That's why that's what happened to me. I looked at my husband, I was like, dude, like really, I think you may be. But you from him, it wasn't like I gotta put up defense mode and even more masks because
Mm,
he knew you. And so he could say that to you
yeah.
without the fight or flight. I'm assuming that. Um, and so
Sometimes.
sometimes, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean,
I would say it was met with tears very often.
um, but for highly functioning person that's been told their whole life how awesome they are and how capable they are, like that's a hard thing to absorb. And you have to go on your own path to getting to the resolution that, you know what, I need to find out if that has some truth to it because
Mhm.
I'm struggling so much that and this is over here and I'm looking at my kids and I'm similar. it's time. It's
Yep.
time to go there.
Yeah.
And that's such a brave, like a brave step. But so after your diagnosis, it was a hard, hard getting there,
Mhm.
hard doing what you needed to do to get your diagnosis. Tell me about after. What happened after?
Oh, I think it's sent me into an emotional tailspin for a bit, where there was relief of like, okay, well, this explains a lot. But then it's also kind of you know, if I had known earlier, and obviously that wasn't the plan. And in some ways I'm grateful I didn't know. And then in others, I'm like, well, this could have avoided a lot of heartbreak and a lot of struggle. But what I'm gifted with now is kind of having the foresight for our kids. Like, let me back up a little bit. So I think something that a lot of people really need to know about neurodivergence, especially in at least our generation, is that there's a lot of suicidal ideation. And it's not always active. Mine was passive, but there was not a week that went by in my life that I could remember up until is it 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
About 2 years ago, that I didn't at least have the thought it would just be easier on everyone if I wasn't here, at least once a week, if not more often. So that's, 30 something years that
Sure.
an individual is enduring this really deep pain. So for me, as a mother of neurodivergent kids,
Mhm.
I hope that I can communicate to them that even though they're wired differently, they are very valuable and they've got a lot to offer society. And so maybe, just maybe, they don't have to be part of that population that faces suicidal ideation because they're told that they're so different and that different is bad. I want to make sure that the messaging to them is that, yes, you are wired different than the majority of people, but you are incredibly valuable, you're incredibly loved. And yes, you've got, obstacles that not everybody's going to have to face, but that doesn't negate your capacity to thrive and be successful. So
Yes.
I'm hoping that they will not have to face suicidal ideation like we have.
Yep. You're not broken. You're
Mm-hmm.
different, not broken.
Mm-hmm.
Difference doesn't mean defective.
Right.
It, it, and them understanding that, and like I wholeheartedly agree with that, for all that, my husband and I went through in our marriage before his diagnosis, and even since then, but it is worth it because we're able to make our kids proudly neurodiverse and let them know that everybody has challenges. We just are going to help each other to compensate for our challenges with our strengths.
Yes.
And so like it's it's beautiful. It could have been different, it wasn't, but we can move
Mhm.
forward and our kids can be in a much better place
Yes.
and
Yeah.
position than we were. And so that's amazing. So talk, Brittany, about, and you too, Brandon, because I know you guys made this joint micro schooling venture together, but how has that been? What was the impetus for you and you talked a little bit about it, but what was the impetus for sort of removing them from traditional school and bringing them into a micro school?
So I can tell you my part of it, since you said some of that, is that really, what I've realized is that the format of a lot of schools, right? Let me just use kind of things that I've heard from other parents, from other students that I've worked with, is usually they just kind of feel forced to learn something and regurgitate it. And then I'd find too, like some, children just do just fine with that, be like, yeah, it is what it is. And then I'd find a lot that they would have either I'm forced to regurgitate this, and then so I'm anxious, and I'm going to try really hard, but I'm just like anxious, and I have an anxious relationship with school.
Mhm.
And then the other ones would be like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to learn about this, and you can't make me.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then so it wasn't necessarily about like the thriving thing, because like, like they can make good grades at these schools and they did just fine. They're not coming home with anything like that, but it's just like, how was school? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you kind of get the,
Yeah.
thing all the time. And so for us, that's not thriving, right? It's like you're spending most of your time and, like we want to make the most of this, right? So the way that she set it up and, was talking to me about what she would do if she had a school even beforehand, I was like, well, why don't you just do that? Because that sounds way better for them, right?
That sounds way better.
Is just make it interesting, right? Like the main thing is like we're allowing them to be creative in their learning. And what I have found is I am backlogged on the projects that they want me to look at that they have created, right? Did you see that? Did you see that? Oh, I did this. I sent you this, right? So I'm getting text messages of my children's um projects and things that they're learning about, and it goes outside of just at home. Like, so one of our daughters is learning one of the sciences on the weekends and is happy about it, and I was so thrilled because we're at my sister-in-law's boyfriend's birthday dinner, and my daughter sits next to me with her notebook, kind of like, okay, are you ready to go through everything
Are
that
you
I
ready,
learned,
Dad?
right? And so she's just like, and here's the notes I took on this. And then so you got to think, these aren't forced things. And then what happens a lot of times, I think that would have happened to our kids, is the only ones I talked about, is that they'd probably be like I was, like a little bit like, yeah, I like burn out on the whole process,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Didn't get good until I got into the counseling degree. I was like, oh, I'm interested in this stuff. Let's talk about it, right?
Mhm.
So to set it up where they get a chance to move their body and to explore with one another and be interested and be able to express that
Mhm.
is, like what really was the driving force, is me as a dad being like, hey, I think you should do this. Like, I'll help where I can, but I think you should do this. Cause just, memories like my daughter turning in a homework assignment artistically, like correct answers, but like
Oh, her
drawn
spelling
in,
test. Yeah.
right? Drawn in. And they were like, take the creativity right out of that,
Yeah,
right?
they wouldn't. Mhm.
Yeah,
And I'm
no
like,
doodling allowed.
yeah. And I'm
Nothing.
just like, I was like, well, what if we lived in a world where you could learn and be creative? I bet that would be
That
much
would
better
be
for you. So for me,
amazing.
that was the main reason. I was like, I think they'll do better with
Mhm.
this. And so far, they seem to really be enjoying it and telling their cousins about, what they're doing. And, we plan to slowly expand that where,
Mhm.
like some other families are allowed to come in so that we can grow it, and, like even have an opportunity to teach things that you don't learn in school. Because I think we all know that school is not necessarily preparing you how to be an adult,
No,
right?
it's not
Mhm.
preparing you for life
It's
outside of.
not preparing you for life. It's preparing you to hear some information,
Yep.
Mhm.
memorize that information, and spit it back out. And
Yep.
now we got these little devices that can hear and spit back out information. So everybody's a genius now, to be honest.
Exactly.
You ask me how tall Everest is. Give me 1 second. Right.
I'll
What's
tell
the
you.
Pythagorean theorem? Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Right. So to make it interesting, and then also like, be able to mix in some things that they actually should learn to get to the next level. Like, how do we deal with emotions?
Mhm.
Right. How do we, like just work on a lot of these things. So that gives us the opportunity to be able to do that. That's one thing I like.
Yeah, and I would say with the emotional part too is, for them to learn that learning is hard, you know, and what a lot of people will do is they check out, like, or his other response was anxiety of like, I got to know every single little thing, those are
Mhm.
kind of the two main responses in a normal school system, as opposed to they come up against something really hard and maybe they decide that they need a brain break, and then they can come back to it. They have the flexibility and the option to do that. Or maybe this is hard for me and I don't really enjoy spelling very much. So I can take that outside and I can spell while I'm swinging, or I
Yep.
can spell while I throw a ball with my other classmate. I because there are things that every student is not going to want to learn. Like not everybody is a speller. Not everybody likes math. But when there's the supportive environment of I have, a secure attachment with whoever's teaching me sitting next to me, and they have positive regard for me, then I feel safe to be able to try something that I don't really like. And because, ultimately that is something as an adult they have to learn. There are going to be things that are challenging or things that are just you don't like to do, but you got to do it
Yep.
anyway. So it's not like I'm just taking everything out and we only do what the kids want to do. I like the idea of unschooling, but I think that sometimes there's a lot missing there where, I don't have to be the expert on every subject, but I can explore with them. And if I'm exploring with them, then I'm also alleviating the pressure of you must know this information. They just get the freedom to explore it. And whether they like it or not, all they did was explore during that time, as opposed to being pressured to know it. And and so then actually they kind of absorb it a little bit more and better.
I've noticed that too. And then it's like so you're teaching them, life science, and one child might be like not a child that likes science, but they love drawing flowers and plants.
Mhm.
One child may totally jam with like the life cycles and food chains, and so you get to allow each child to take out of what you're teaching them that they really have to know, because there's core subjects that they have to know, but they
Absolutely.
get to learn it in their own way, and they're all going to absorb what they need out of it. And let's face it, they're all going to have to take the ACT and SAT one day, and we got to make sure that they're like, not all, but I mean, if you want to go to college, so you got to take that. And so, but the schools, traditional schools, they are only educating for testing. And
Mhm.
that's the complete opposite of what we're doing as homeschoolers
Yeah.
or micro schoolers.
Mhm.
And I think that's the big difference. And like you said, they are learning from someone that they are securely attached to. So
Yeah.
they know that this person I can be vulnerable with. I
Mhm.
can I can show my frustration to. I can
Mhm.
ask the questions that I don't understand.
Mhm.
Um, and my mom's learning with me, my dad's learning with me. My dad lets me show him my journal at a dinner party.
Mhm.
Because that's the only time we could find to do it. But he's available to me for me to
Yes.
share with him what I'm learning.
Yeah.
And how valuable is that?
Yeah, she
And
had
then,
went earlier that day,
yeah.
so it was fresh.
Mhm.
It
She was
was
so excited. She was like, "Hey, I'm back. Let me tell you what I did today." And I
I'm
loved it.
back.
I loved it, right?
Yeah.
It's just like it's so cool to be like, "Hey, let me show you my thing. Let me show you my thing."
Yeah.
You know, I'm a little jealous because they look like they have a lot of fun.
We do.
Yep.
Trying to
Yep.
make my way. I get to go to the field trips. We do that on Fridays.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Oh, so field trip Friday. That's awesome.
yeah. I will add that having another mom there, as another secure attachment figure has been really helpful, that I didn't realize when I was first starting that I would value so much. But we have found that, when my son doesn't want to read to me,
Mhm.
you know, she
Mhm.
can get him to read, and there's moments where like her son doesn't want to do math, but I'm using a math curriculum that he has told his mom he will absolutely not do, but he does it with me.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
so, you
And
know,
that's the community aspect.
yeah, I just, and so it's nice to kind of have that buffer of,
Mhm.
hey, I, as the mom, might get too frustrated
Mhm.
because of their
Mhm.
pushing back against me. And so if you are able to do this with them without that pushback, that is a relief. And I know that, they're getting taken care of and vice versa as well on
Mhm.
things that have been more difficult. Because I would say with each child, there's one area in their studies where they will push back,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
those are points of tension, and kind of learning to navigate those myself, but also just having that resource of, well, she can work with you then. It's like,
Go see her. How about
yeah,
that?
Mhm.
Tell her no. But you're not going to do that because you're like, you want to be like an obedient child. Like when you're pushing mom, you may
yeah.
not push. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I would say, we do like one day of community a week, and that it really, that accountability
Yeah.
to like their peers in their community classes and the tutors,
Yes.
like they don't want to go there without their work done. So
Yep.
last year was just me, like you're saying, and it was like, oh my gosh, like I'm constantly having to go and
Hmm.
check. I don't have to do that because they know that
Yep.
they're accountable to somebody else besides me. So
Yes.
Yep.
That was a huge advantage with them being in hybrid school, is on the
Mhm.
home days of like when they didn't want to do something, it's like, I'm so sorry, Mrs. So and so said that this is due
Said
tomorrow. We have to do it.
she said,
Like,
I would let you
Yes.
slide. I would let you
yeah,
slide if it was up to me. But you have to
Good
do
cop, bad cop, huh?
it. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, this has been so great, guys. I like really, this has been just such an enjoyable conversation. I know our listeners are going to really enjoy it. Why don't I would love for you both, Brandon, tell people where you are, how they can get to you. Do you do virtual or only in person? Like, how does your practice work? Brittany, what if a mom wanted to reach out to you about how to micro school, or perhaps having, her child maybe their
mhm.
child or children maybe join your school? Like, how can the listeners find you? And yeah, just kind of what you guys are going to be doing in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I say, um, my name and our website is the best way to get started, right? Brandon at mindandbodygroup.com. And the things that your listeners would probably be most interested in would be probably a little twofold, right? We've got direct primary care. So what that is it's a medical model the way it kind of used to be before we overcomplicated it. So you
Mhm,
just get time with your doctor, you get time to sit down, and what a lot of the parents really like are we do neurotransmitter testing through urinalysis. And I
mhm,
love that because, like, so let's just use ADHD in this example.
mhm,
We often are going to have low dopamine, low norepinephrine, serotonin might be fine, right? But you go to a doctor, you say, hey, these are what I'm experiencing. And, we experience a lot of anxiety because we're thinking through everything at 1,000 miles an hour. So they put you on an SSRI, and that's not even what you needed, right? So
mhm,
you do this. And now she can also talk to you as like, well, what are the ways you can get that dopamine? What are the ways you can get that? Because lifestyle, um, you know, supplements, diet, all that kind of stuff. So, that's one of the things that they'd probably be really interested in. Then
mhm.
you asked if we do counseling, we do it in person. Oh, yeah, this is Kennesaw. I don't know if I said that. Kennesaw, Georgia.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, that's perfect. So
Kennesaw.
Kennesaw, Georgia area, Atlanta area.
Yep.
Mhm.
So we do in person and virtual. But for the ketamine assisted psychotherapy, it'll all be in person because we want to monitor the person very
Sure,
closely. And
sure.
that's something that can really help people if they've been experiencing depression or anxiety and getting stuck in that. That one's really cool because evidence shows that within about 3 weeks, people can have some lifelong changing effects after that
Mhm.
experience. So that's the way to get in touch with us. And I love to answer questions, no strings attached. So if you want to email me, I'd be happy to get back with people.
Yep. And we'll put this in the show notes for the listeners as well, so you'll be able to find them easily. And okay, Brittany.
Yeah, so I would say probably the easiest way to see what I'm doing and to contact me about what I'm doing with the school is maybe through Instagram. I do have
Mhm,
email as well, it'll be Brittany at mindandbodygroup.com. But my Instagram handle is at Rise with Brittany, Brittany.
mhm.
So then they can kind of see the projects that we're working on. And ask any questions that they might have, because we are in Georgia. So obviously, I know your listeners will be from all over the place.
Mhm.
But I would love to help in any way I can. Mhm.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, guys. This has been amazing. I really appreciate it. I think it's going to help a lot of people. Blessings and good luck for continuing your micro school and growing your
Yeah.
practice, Brandon. Sounds like you don't need help growing your practice, Brandon. And
Oh, we always need help.
I'm certainly going to send people to you. So don't get mad at me. You're like, why do you keep sending all these people? But I know that it's a really really needed thing for people to find a place where they feel like they're at home and they're seen, known, and understood. So thank you for providing that for people. And Brittany, thank you for being in the trenches with the littles, making it happen, raising our next leaders,
Mhm.
in of tomorrow. So thank you guys so much.
you.
Thank you for allowing us to share some time with you and be on. It was great.
Yeah.
Oh, it was an honor. It was amazing. So thank you guys. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Mhm.